Hello, dearest soul. I want to speak about things coming up. I feel like a very popular one right now in this moment of now of recording. There's a lot of planetary shifts and movements, a lot of retrograde. I think at one point there were 5 planets together retrograding, just a lot of energy. And how I actually see retrograde, I actually define it as shaking something loose. It's like going back and shaking the tree just to make sure that there's nothing there. And in doing so, we might have something surface or bubble up or come up. Maybe it's a belief. Maybe it's a perspective. Maybe it's something that we've held on to, and maybe we can't even remember when we first started holding on to it. Could be something that's been around for a long time, if you will, or it might be something very fresh and new. But why do these things come up? How I describe it is something can bubble up, and the first thing we do is we go to ego. What does our ego feel about the thing that's coming up? So let's just say the thing that's coming up is my belief that I am non intelligent. If I was smarter, things would get better. So it has to do with my intelligence. So the first thing my ego is going to say is like, yeah, duh. Yep. Because, remember that one thing that you did that one time? Or all those things that you did all those times? Like, it's going to start taking inventory. It's going to start going very linear. Like, let's process this thing. But what I want to invite you to do is a few steps that have helped me immensely. And this being under kind of the guidance of my beautiful guides, sharing how to see, if you will, and I'm using air quotes, how to see the thing that is bubbling up. Because if we take it for face value, and if we get the ego involved, we often feel we are that thing. We make it into who we are or what this says about us. So in this intelligence example, if this is coming up and I am having some doubts or frustrations around my intelligence level, I am then going to say, if I'm going along with my ego, well, I'm stupid. Well, I'm not smart enough. Well, I'm not good enough. And it can continue and continue and continue. But what if we just took a different stance? And this is where my guides shared with me a couple of steps that I'd love to share with you. The very first thing they told me is to get it out of my mind. How do I do that? By writing it down or entering it into something. I use Notion, I use Obsidian. So maybe it's documenting it in there. I also have an iPad, or I have my Supernote that I can write it down. I could write it down on a piece of paper. I could write it on a note card. That's also a favorite one of mine. Or maybe I use my notes app on my phone. I want to get it out of my mind. Because in removing it from my mind, I can start to be a little bit more objective from a sense of perspective. If it's in my mind, I can very easily associate it with myself because it's up there. It's in there. So I'm like, okay, yep, there it is. And then before you know it, I am. I am stupid. I am not smart. So instead, these thoughts that are coming up about my intelligence, about if I was smarter, then things would be easier or better or whatever it may be, I'm going to write it down. So get it out of your mind to see it. Because I will share a secret that I've learned with my QHHT work, that often when we cannot or don't want to handle something or deal with something or really to see it for what it is, we actually take it out of ourselves and almost install it like a mirror in front of us. And this is what is called an attachment, an energetic attachment. And what we do in now seeing it is we start feeding it our fears or our thoughts or things. And this is what makes it bigger. And actually it starts to take on a personality. It also, because it's outside of us, allows us to blame, to point fingers. Because at this point, I am not ready or I cannot see it. And so instead, it's going to be this permanent reminder for me to look at, to sit at the table with, to not deal with it, but meet with it. I have a video about energetic attachments that I'll also link for y'all so you can check it out if you are interested, because it is very interesting. We think about possession and we think about these negative entities and what have you. They are actually all self-created. I know, it's shocking. And trust me, I have looked at this every way possible, but that's what we do here on Beyond the Belief, right? We talk about things that might be outside of our belief systems that are like, what? So if you'd like to understand a different perspective than what you might host, I would humbly invite you to check it out. But essentially, we have this thing that's outside of us so we can see it. And when these things are bubbling up, what we don't want to do is then take that thing, pull it on the outside of us, and then start to label it and objectify it, and then eventually start feeding it with our fears to keep it alive because we've said the truth. We've stated it into existence. We've said, well, my stupidity is based on my parents. If only my parents had paid for me to go to private school, and I put that there. I declare that so. Well, it becomes a belief of mine. And in order to continue to sustain itself, I got to keep checking in on it. I got to keep feeding it. Because if I don't, what happens is they actually just die away. They wither away. But what keeps those fears or keeps those beliefs in existence is based on me, is based on my energetic feeding of it. So with us instead taking it out of our mind, and instead of it becoming this attachment, we instead put it on a piece of paper. We put it in a system. We put it on a note card. We can see it. Very similar to seeing it when it becomes this attachment, but it's different. We can start to again invite in perspective. So my guides shared, take it out of your mind, put it into something, and then they told me to take 20 steps back. I'm thinking about this, right? So I'm like, okay, so I have this thing about my intelligence. I'm going to put it on a note card, and now I'm going to literally just like get far away from it. Just get the heck away from it. I'm going to move 20 steps back. And it's funny, when you start to look at something, I coined this term, it's completely nerdy, but putting on your curiosity cap, okay? So we're going to look at this with curiosity, not judgment, not emotion, not blame, not trying to fix it, not trying to solve it. Nope, we're not going to do any of those things. We're just going to observe it. We're going to look at it. I can grab a note card here. Got my note card. I'm going to look at it. My intelligence. So if my intelligence was better, then I might be better in life. I might be farther along. I wouldn't be in debt. Whatever it may be. Okay, I'm going to take 20 steps back. I'm looking at it again. Interesting. This is an interesting belief. This is an interesting feeling. This is an interesting emotion. Okay, so we're already gaining perspective. We have it outside of us so we can see it. And now we're going to introduce two things that are going to help us objectively, again, leverage perspective with this thought or this belief or this thing that is bubbling up. The first thing is to become a junior detective. I don't know about y'all, but I love being a detective. It's fun. It somehow doesn't become so fun when we start looking at things for ourselves, but I have actually learned to appreciate the process as well as attempt to find some fun in it. So we're going to look at this note card. I'm going to start to ask some questions about it so that I can get to know it better because I want to see it from different perspectives. I already know what the feeling felt like. And let's just say in this case, that feeling of coming up about my intelligence, I feel like I failed. I feel like I can't do anything. I feel bad. I feel guilty. I feel frustrated. Whatever these emotions are, I feel all these things. Okay. And if I want to, I can start to write these things down. And this really helped me, y'all. I'm going to write down what my ego feels, what the I think I am feels. And this is normally has some sort of guilt attached to it. It has some sort of culture attached to it. So what we learned about education and what we've learned about intelligence and what we've learned lack of intelligence means. Anything there, any meaning, any labels, any guilt, we're going to write it all down. These are the emotions that my ego felt. Okay. So it's almost like interviewing your ego, right? So, all right. Okay. Got it. Thank you so much. And if you think of anything else, let me know. Then we're going to ask it, where did this thing or when did this thing first come up? So this thing, right? My intelligence. When did this first come up? When did I first start caring about my intelligence? Because at some point I didn't even know what it was. And then at some point it's like, I need to be smart. I need to apply myself. I need to see things. I need to do things. I need to get straight A's. When did this come up? Let's say it came up in elementary school. My parents were really hard on me. Interesting. Okay. Well, tell me why your parents were hard on you. Well, they didn't get to go to school, or they felt that they'd be a better parent if they had a smart kid, or this was a way to control me so that I would just go in my room and do my homework. So I'd be out of their hair. So we start to think about why. And maybe some of it is speculation. Maybe we don't really know why. But we can start to put on that junior detective now hat, our curiosity cap, to start to unpack some of these questions. Because it's coming up originally for a reason. Right now, it's just about inquiry or just understanding. Okay, so interesting. And then when, for me, did it start becoming a thing? Maybe I started feeling guilt around it, or I felt pressure to finish my homework, or I felt like I needed to get straight A's. Well, where did that come from? And more importantly, when did that come from? Well, maybe that actually happened to me in junior high school. So I've got elementary school where I'm feeling this. Junior high, I'm feeling guilt for this. And then when did I feel like, because the thing that came up in this example is that if I was just smarter, I'd be further along. I'd be more successful. I'd have more money. Where did those come from? Where did those beliefs come from? Were they things that I heard my roommates in college talking about, my college professors? Were they things that my parents said, reinforced to me? Was it everything in concert? So it was my student peers, my teachers, my parents, my grandparents. I mean, who is it? Whom is it? So we're going to start to architect and write these things down because we're just trying to understand the why. Then my guides shared another question. So not only when did this first come up? So I'm kind of taking some historic inventory. Now I'm going to ask, what was I like during those times? So what was I like in elementary school? What was I like in junior high school? What was I like in college? What were the differences of me during those times? Well, maybe in elementary school, I was super playful and fun and I just bounce around and run around or whatever. Junior high, I got really serious. And then college, I just wouldn't leave my room, my dorm room. Like I just studied all the time. Start to take inventory for who you were, as well as what was going on in your life at that time. I've also learned this from QHHT, that much of our body communication, the ailments that we experience, whether it be discomfort or pain or getting into illness or disease, talking about the origin of when things started, you can get an idea of what was happening in your life at that time. And a lot of times that is what I call the latch. That's the thing that magnetically just kind of brings it together to where it becomes part of you. And it's really not part of you. But the crazy part is that we don't even choose to expel it. We continue to bring it around like baggage. So it's like, yeah, let me get my 17 bags that are in the car. So we're like carrying all this, which Michael Singer calls garbage. This is all your garbage. Funny enough, Dolores Cannon called it the same thing. You have all this garbage that you're carrying around with you for no reason. So it's things that we're choosing to continue to carry. And we don't even realize it. That is why we're going through this activity. That is why my guide said, okay, hang on, Lavender. Take a couple of steps back. Take 20 steps back to look at this from a different perspective, because there's different factors that are happening in our life experience that we don't even pay attention to, or we don't even see. It becomes a blind spot. But by just shining a light in there, suddenly things start to illuminate. And then through understanding what was my life like, what was I like, and then when did I say yes to this thing? So in my lovely example, when did I say yes to believing, to the guilt, to the garbage, that my intelligence is directly related to my life experience and my success in earning money? When did I say yes to that? And it might be not a voluntary yes, as far as like I heard it and I was like, oh, yes, that makes so much sense. I will believe that until the end of time. Like, no. Could have been guilt, peer pressure. The point when my actions started demonstrating that that was true. So in this case, when did I start studying like it was do or die? When did I start tracking my grades to where I would give myself so much fluff and pain and hurt if I didn't have perfection? That is when you said yes. And this moment, when you said yes, why did you say yes? Why? What were the reasons? More than likely, it has something to do with fear. Because our energetic appendages, or these things that we carry around, our garbage, is because of fear. We don't want to let it go because of something. It will expose us. It will show us who we are. It'll tell everybody else who we are. I don't know what my life will look like without it. It's tied to fear. And as Dolores Cannon used to say, fear is for entertainment purposes only. My guides tell me all the time, fear is a man-made construct. It is an illusion. It is not real. We make it real by our beliefs, by these things that are on our note cards. These are the things that keep it alive. And then invite yourself to contemplate. Do I really believe this? Right now, in this gorgeous moment of now. Do I believe this? And not the secondary step of like, well, I have to believe it because fear. Because if I don't pay attention to intelligence, then I'm not going to make any money. Nope. Do we believe the thing that's on the card? As in, do I believe? Would I tell someone else that this is the truth? Would I declare this as my truth? That if you don't focus on your intelligence and your grades, you suck. You're not smart. You won't go anywhere in life. Would I tell someone that? Do I believe that? Because most times, and I'm not going to say every time, because I've been going through my own exercise with these lovely, right, in this example, cards. But in most cases, we are carrying stuff around that we don't even believe. We just hold on to it for fear. I like to think about this in an example, and this is a real story for me. Real. I was one of those people that like to be so planned and so prepared that my pantry is stocked. Those things that I love, for example, let's say it's coffee or it's cereal or something, and I know this because I was in retail for a while, I have back stock of that. Okay, I've got like 5 different canisters of, the coffee or the cereal boxes because I don't want to run out. Because if I run out, I don't know what I'm going to do because that's my favorite thing ever. Clenching. And then I would freak out if I couldn't make sure that those things were there because I had a belief that I held. I didn't even know I held it, but I ended up discovering it and uncovering it. Thank you, junior detective. I'm telling you, curiosity cap, it works. I realized that I was doing this to reduce my discomfort. I didn't want to feel the discomfort of not being able to get something. Let's say I'm ordering from groceries from the store and I'm ordering my coffee and they're out. I don't want to feel that. Why not? And for me, as I kept asking why, and I'll see if I can mock it right now, but basically, well, why? Well, because I like my coffee. Okay, why? Well, because it makes me feel good. Why? Well, because I don't have a lot of things in my life that do feel good. And this is one of the things that I have. So I can't not have this, because if I don't have this, I don't have anything. Ah, so it's not about coffee, really. It's about the emotion. This is a true story. I felt like everything in my life I had to architect and I had to do and I had to order and I had to make sure and I had to keep everything so pristine. And this is what Michael A. Singer, who wrote The Untethered Soul, talks about, that this is touching your stuff. I didn't want anything to touch my stuff. This is my world. This is what I want. Nobody touch my stuff. And I will say this from a magic perspective. I know I've mentioned this on previous episodes. I love magic. I love it. I love seeing a shooting star. I love the synchronicities that come together that you never saw coming. This world that I was holding together and architecting, there's no room for magic. I suffocated the magic right out of the room. Because imagine this, the issue with me backstocking my coffee was not about the coffee. It was about me. That was one of the small few pleasures that I had. And so I had to make sure that I always had it, because I didn't want anything to jeopardize that. Because if I didn't have that, what would I have? But this was an invitation for me to also look at, okay, why don't I have other things? And what do I have that, let's say in this case, I don't want to have? Or that it's not my choice, it's not my preference, that I have to deal with. I just got to get through it. What are those things? And then asking these same questions. When did this first come up? Who was I when this first came up? When did I say yes to this thing? And why? And then, do I believe that now? And I will say, this is a semi Pandora's box, depending on how tightly wound your world is. Mine was very tightly wound. I swear half the time I think like an engineer. It was like very structured, and there were hierarchies and systems and if and statements. I had everything figured out because I didn't want to feel pain. I wasn't living life. And that's why I'm sharing this episode today, in this gorgeous moment of now, because this is not about the thing. Likely, it's not about that. And if I rewind and talk about this mock example of intelligence, there's a really good chance it doesn't have to do with intelligence. It has to do with how my parents saw me, how others saw me, how the world sees me. That I bought into this thing because this is the logical reason why, and this is why it's true. And then that creates a belief that then I hold on to. It's just so incredible too, because as we know, everything is interconnected. And as we start to explore these things, we start to uncover. So the last thing my guide said for what we do with what is on our note card or in our journal or what have you, is that we ask if it aligns with who you are. And who you are, my dear, is not the ego, the labels, the titles. You could be a father, but you are not a father. That's not who you are. That is a role. That is an assignment. That is what you signed up for. That's a commitment, however you want to define it. But it is not who you are. You are the I am. You are the soul. You're not your ego. You're not what culture says you are. Who are you? And does this thing on your note card, in your journal, does this align? Does this match? Is there resonance? Is there vibration? Do they go together? And in my case, I can confidently say that if I'm talking about my intelligence is linked to money, is not the I am. That is what the world tells me. So no, it's not. And then take this note card or wherever you're taking these notes, and then you're going to invite in perspective. You're going to ask your guides. You're going to ask the God of your knowing. Or my favorite is to sit in some sort of meditative or prayer silence, resonance of just communing with who you are, the I am. And then it's about seeing what surfaces. I will tell you, and funny enough, it is actually on this note card that sits on my desk. I must pause to receive. That is the only way. Looks like this. This is truth. This is what my guides had said. It came to me on 11/11 at 9:49 a.m. That pause that we allow ourselves, we invite in. It's that break between the breaths. It's that space between the thought and the action. That pause is sacred. And only when we pause, when we invite that pause in, between that space is where you receive. So if you are in a meditative place, state, prayer, what have you, and you get to a point where the conscious mind kind of takes a break, it runs its course first, takes a break. It's the same thing that happens with automatic writing. You're just writing whatever is coming into your consciousness, just writing. And then suddenly something else is speaking. That is when you receive. And that is the received perspective that then you go back and you look at your note card. You take your note card and say, okay, I have received these things, these truths, these pieces of information. Now I'm going to go look at my note card. And you're going to leverage these perspectives. And if there are religious or spiritual texts that you appreciate, go visit them. What do they say about this? Or gurus or leaders or whatever you've got. I have an inspiration database that basically I put everything in that inspires me. And I'll go in there and search. So I'm going to search for intelligence. I'm going to search for money. I'm going to search for school. What comes up? And then what you're going to do is basically take all of these things, these data points that you have collected, these perspectives, and then you're going to do the final filter. Look at it objectively, still at that 20 steps back stance. What does this thing say? What is this thing saying? And is this legit? Is this me? Do I want to have this belief? Does this belief serve me? And as my guides advised, what you will find is that 9 times out of 10, these things that are surfacing, and thank you to the planetary energies that be, that give that mutative pressure, that introspective pressure. Because just like a seed needs to push through the soil to start to grow upwards, ascending, we must push through. And that push through that comes through, I believe, and as my guides have even confirmed, those things are arising in us to be heard, to be healed, and to be released. The reason you feel this, because this is the most common thing I hear. I got this thought, this thing came to me and it made me so mad and I don't even know where it came from. I've been thinking about it all day and I just don't know what to do about it. It's about my intelligence and my career. I'm just so frustrated, right? You just have this whole narrative and things and you don't know. I believe that thing came up for you, to serve your highest good. Because that thing that's being surfaced doesn't serve you anymore. There's a really good chance, and I will say this personally, from doing this activity multiple times, those things I don't even believe anymore. It's a bunch of hooey. I held on to it since I was little. I know I did a video, and I'll put the link also in the show notes, talking about beliefs and the power of beliefs. I actually had a belief that I didn't want to date tall men. And I won't blow the story. It's a fun one. So I'll put the video again in the show notes. But things that I never would have even thought I was holding on to. I never, ever would have told you, like, oh yeah, What? Oh, this is a belief that I held on to since I was 10. And I didn't even know I held it until it came to the surface when I was 35. We don't realize how much we hold on to. And what is that belief doing? It's not serving you. This thing about intelligence and money, it's not serving you. It's not pushing you to be better. It's not. It might not even be something you believe. Out of fear, you might force yourself to hold on to it, to believe it, but you don't actually believe it. And so as these things come up and we go through this activity of these 6 steps, we then can look at this with perspective. And for me, it's also being very objective. And through asking these questions, we allow it to be heard. And as a little bonus tip, when I do my meditations and I'm inviting this pause in to listen, to hear. That is when I invite it to tell me, why are you coming up, thought, belief, whoever you are? Why is this coming up? And waiting for the first thing that drops into your mind. Because I will tell you, also for my QHHT work, the first thing that comes to our mind is often divine. It's an intuitive hit. It's an intuitive tap. It's a direct connection. Especially on the human design perspective, if you've got a defined spleen, you've got an open head, an open ajna, and you are receiving and you are feeling, and trust your intuition. Trust the first thought that comes to you. And especially if you've gotten into a place of meditation, absolutely trust that. Write it down. And in doing so, you actually fully hear it. You fully hear the pain. Gabor Mate, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing his name, he went on the Mel Robbins podcast and he said something so beautiful. And if I can find the link, I'll put it in the show notes. But essentially, he walked Mel through a scenario that happened to her as a kid. And he identified that the actual trauma of what she had gone through was not actually the thing that we'd all think. Like, I'll give myself as an example. The trauma that my earthly father broke my nose when I was 13. That's tragic. That's trauma. But I will tell you that the trauma was not actually that. The trauma was that I couldn't talk about it. I wasn't listened to. That neither of my parents called the police, even though my face, my septum was completely shattered. That is actually the trauma. So it's not the thing that happened, it's how the thing that happened was mitigated or approached or dealt with or seen. That is the trauma. So often allowing these things and these thoughts to come up. And thank you, transits, for that lovely mutative little push to get the things up and out so you can hear it and see it and be objective in a sense of perspective and decide whether you want to keep carrying it around. Because, like Dolores and Michael say, it could be garbage that you're carrying around, things that don't serve you. And I do believe that also if we've avoided this activity and we try to stay away and stick our head in the sand and la 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 la, I'm just going to, I believe what I believe. Well, when you actually sit down to do the work, it could be a lot bigger than you were expecting because there's a lot of energy that you have avoided, a lot of energy that you've pushed down, that you've repressed. So those things need to come out. And as my guides affectionately remind me, it is not a 1-for-1 ratio. So it's not going to be that, took you 5 years to get there. It's going to take you 5 years to get out. Nope. It can come instantly. It's just about connecting with it. And these questions that my guides shared with me are vehicles to connect you with it. Because once you hear it, you can heal it and you can release it, set it free. And what actually happens, and I want to say this out loud, what happens when you set it free, when you hear it, you heal it, you release it, is you free the energy. So going back to my pantry example, imagine how much energy I put into that belief that I could not let my coffee run out. Oh, the amount of hours, time, energy, focus, attention, repeat reminders. I keep telling myself so I won't forget, like so much energy. But what happens when we actually hear it, heal it, release it? Because if we don't hear it, we can't heal it. And if we don't heal it, we can't release it. So they are sequential and needed. But in releasing that, imagine how much energy I set free. Just with that one example of my coffee. So much energy. And you know what happens? All that energy then comes back to you. And instead it comes back to you in the form that you actually desire right now, in this gorgeous moment of now. Whatever it is that you're holding in your heart, it comes back. So if you have processed these things and released them, they then come back to you in a form that you desire. As long as you believe it. Because if you don't believe that's the case, then what you believe is what you shall receive. But if you do believe it, there it is. So in this lovely moment of contemplation, I invite you to think about, to ponder, to contemplate what things have come up recently for you that might have been uncomfy, might have triggered some emotions. What things are those things? And can you record them down? Write them down. Put them somewhere. Get them out of your mind so you can see them. Work through these questions, these prompts, and I'll put the prompts in the show notes as well. Just as a quick list, you can copy paste it and try it out. I would invite you to try it. This is the work. It is challenging, especially at first. I'll tell you, the first time I did this, it was very hard because I had never done this before. I had never sat at the table with my beliefs and my fears. I had never taken an inventory and seen things objectively and listened to them, to see them, to even experience that. I'd never done that before, ever. But here I am. And I will tell you now that when things come up, this has become a fun activity for me. No lie. I actually get really excited because I've realized in setting all these things free, I cannot even tell you how much lighter I am. You know what's funny? Going back to that coffee example, you know what I do now? I order my coffee. And if I go to order my coffee again, let's say the store is out, I celebrate because this is an invitation and an opportunity for me to try a different coffee. Because who knows? Maybe I'll love it. And if I don't love it, then I re-fall in love with the coffee that I've drank for a while. Or maybe I try a tea. It's an invitation to experience something else. Because y'all, that's not safe. I just had shared with someone that just because you know it and it's familiar does not make it safe. Our ego makes us feel like it's safe because we supposedly know what to expect, but that doesn't mean it's safe. So the known things, who knows, maybe I find another coffee that I absolutely fall head over heels for that I never would have tried if my coffee had not run out. Never would have done it. That's possible. And this has introduced such a level of play to my life experience, to where things are a little lighter and I can enjoy things. And I go through the motions of ordering my coffee, and if it doesn't come up, yes, this is my chance to take a peek at something else. And again, if I don't like it, then I don't like it. But if I do like it, I've got another coffee I can enjoy. That is what life is. It's an experience. There are things that we love to experience. Michael Singer talks about this in literally many of his books, that we cannot hold on to the same experience. If you go to a restaurant and you just, oh my gosh, everything was great. The food was great. The service was great and everything. And then you go back to the same restaurant and you expect the exact same thing. I always say, you're limiting yourself. How do you know it couldn't be better? How do you know that? You don't know that, my friends. It could be better. You just had the best, but how do you know it couldn't be better? Maybe the wait staff this next evening that you go is like, they are on it. They know their stuff. You thought the last group knew it. This time, holy moly. Or if you go and it's just not that experience, you know what? You'll treasure that experience that you had. Maybe this is an invitation to try a new restaurant. Explore. Look around. There's so many beautiful things, and the only constant in life is change. Our ego is the one that wants to tie us to consistency, anchor us into doing the same thing all the time so we don't have to think. That's not life. And I would invite you to ponder that, to allow it to unfurl, to introduce some pause into your life, into your moment. Allow the space between those breaths to get longer so that you open up this portal for receiving. And in that portal, you can receive something that will help empower you in ways you didn't even expect. And when we don't invite the pauses in and we keep things so tight and so corralled, I know I lived that life. It's not a bad life. But I will tell you, if I'm looking at my life right now, my life is fun right now. There's adventure. There's things behind corners that I didn't even know could exist. I am surprised by even the most simple things. Where before it was like, oh my gosh, I got to do this and I have to do this and all these obligations and things. I'd architected my whole life. And then my life got so overwhelming that then I put myself into a cage because being in a cage was safer. And I could pad my cage and I bought a lot of stuff to put in my cage. So I basically couldn't even move around. That was my chosen life experience. And many people do that. I will tell you, you can set yourself free. These steps help set me free. So now when the transit energy comes around, or it could just be the collective's energy that's arising things within me, I then can say, oh, hello. Well, who are you? Okay, you are telling me that intelligence has to do with money, and if I don't have this, then I'm not going to have money. Thank you for communicating this to me. Can we sit down for a few moments? I would love to ask you a few questions. And maybe it's the inner recruiter in me. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself. In this process, there is a reason it is coming up for you. And again, if you have not done this process, have patience with yourself. Because when I first dove into this, I had like 10 things that were on repeat that were coming up. But imagine they're trying to get out. They're trying to release the energy to free you from that, but invite back energy that you can leverage for things that you are calling into your life existence. Nature abhors a vacuum. Create the vacuum. Set it free. And you set it free by hearing it and healing it. You can do this, my friends. Thank you to my lovely TikTok followers for inspiring this episode. I appreciate you all so much. I'm sending you so much love and light. Thank you all. Namaste.